I always thought my family was a little distant. We're not the type to drown each other in hugs or trade I love yous like some sitcom family. But this hit different. My 34th birthday came and went like a forgotten cup of coffee on a Monday morning. Not a single text, not a call, not even a generic happy birthday gif in the family chat. At first I brushed it off. Maybe they were just busy or maybe they had something planned. I tried not to read too much into it. Then I opened Instagram and that's when my chest tightened. It was my sister Mia's story. A slow-motion boomerang of my family. My mom, dad, sister, brother, and even my aunt, toasting with bright cocktails against the backdrop of a sunlit beach. The caption, family trip. Cheers. Costa del Sol. The timestamp said it was posted just that morning. They were in Spain, without me. I clicked back through her posts, each one a little stab in my chest. Bright skies, sun-kissed smiles, sandy toes. I scrolled further and there it was. The group photo, everyone there but me, not a single trace that I even existed. I felt my heart drop not in a dramatic slow-mo way, but in that sharp, breath-stealing way you get when you realize you've been truly completely excluded. I opened the family group chat. Scrolled back. No mention of a trip. No, hey, we're heading to Spain maybe next time, just silence. I shot a message. Nice vacation, thanks for the invite. No response, not even the dreaded seen notification. I tried calling my brother Mark, the one most likely to pick up. He answered on the third ring, the sounds of waves and clinking glasses in the background. He was half laughing, probably tipsy. I forced a light tone. So you all went to Spain without telling me? He didn't even try to sound guilty. Just chuckled and said, "No one cares about your birthday, Alex. Get over it." My jaw clenched. I felt the phone tremble slightly in my grip. I forced myself to exhale to stay calm. Sure, I said, voice tighter than I wanted. Thanks for reminding me where I stand. I ended the call before he could say anything else. I stared at the wall for a minute, the silence of my apartment suddenly too loud. I could feel the heat rising in my face, the kind that signals either a full-on meltdown or a quiet, icy rage. I chose the latter. I wasn't about to let them see me break even if they weren't here to witness it. For the rest of the day, I moved like a ghost through my own life. I ordered takeout, scrolled through their vacation photos a few more times, then muted every single one of them. I wasn't about to beg for scraps of affection. Not anymore. I sat in my kitchen, lights dim, the cold, untouched pad, tie sitting on the counter. I thought about all the times they'd leaned on me, when Mark's laptop crashed during his finals, when Mia needed someone to proofread her grad school applications, when Mom needed help navigating the chaos of her online banking. I'd always been the one they turned to, the fixer, the reliable, boring older sibling. And this was the thanks I got. A bitter laugh escaped my throat. I took a long sip from my beer, the bottle cool against my palm, and whispered to the empty room. All right. Message received. I had no idea how much that decision would change everything. I spent the next few days trying to shake off that gut punch feeling, but it clung to me like a cold, wet blanket. I muted their accounts, cleared my notifications, even considered changing my number for a second. I told myself to move on. They'd shown me where I stood and I had to accept it. But it wasn't that easy. The anger simmered just below the surface, feeding off every small reminder that I was the odd one out, the forgotten piece of their perfect family puzzle. A few days later, my phone buzzed. A group text from Mia. I hesitated, then swiped it open. Mia. Hey Alex, can you check on Mom's Wi-Fi? She says it's acting up. I laughed, a short, bitter sound that echoed off my empty walls. Of course. No apology, no acknowledgement of my birthday, just straight back to business. The human tech support hotline was officially back in service. I left her on red. An hour later, my dad chimed in. Dad, Alex, can you reset the router? Your mom's been trying to watch her shows and it keeps cutting out. I didn't even bother replying. I was done playing the family technician. If they wanted to treat me like an afterthought, fine. They could figure out their own Wi-Fi issues. By the second day, the messages had ramped up to calls. First, just my mom, then Mia, then my dad. I let each one ring out the sound of their desperation, a twisted kind of satisfaction. I imagined them fumbling through router settings, poking buttons, getting more and more frustrated. Then Mark called. I watched the screen light up with his name, his stupid grinning profile picture staring back at me. I let it ring until it cut off. A second later, the voicemail icon appeared. I played it on speaker, leaning back in my chair as his voice crackled through. He sounded annoyed, already on edge. Alex, can you just pick up for once? Mom's freaking out about the Wi-Fi, and I don't have time to deal with this. Just do your thing and fix it from wherever you do that. I smirked. Oh, he was mad. Good. I deleted the message without a second thought. The next morning, I got a text from my aunt, the one I hadn't even realized was on the trip with them. She rarely reached out, her texts usually reserved for holiday chain messages or the occasional forwarded meme. Aunt Lisa. Hey, I don't know what's going on, but your mom's really upset. Can you please call her? I left her on read too. That evening, my sister Mia tried again, this time with a voice note. Her voice came through shaky, a hint of genuine worry breaking through her usual upbeat tone. Alex, I don't know what's going on with you, but you need to stop being so dramatic. Just fix the Wi-Fi and stop making this a bigger deal than it is. I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. Dramatic. She had the nerve to call me dramatic after leaving me out of a whole family vacation. I decided to let them sweat. I owed them nothing. They'd made it perfectly clear where I stood, and I was finally ready to accept that. But then they pushed me too far. 3 days later, another text from Mark came through, and this one hit differently. Mark, look. If you're going to act like a child, maybe we should just handle things without you from now on. You clearly don't want to be part of this family, so maybe it's time we stop relying on you. Just fix the Wi-Fi and move on. I felt the slow burn of anger rise in my chest. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and set my phone down. I knew at that moment that I wasn't just going to ignore them anymore. I was going to make them regret ever writing me off. I walked to my computer, pulled up the account for their precious rental property, the one I'd set up for them as a favor, and clicked through the settings. It took me all of 10 minutes to lock them out, changed the passwords, disabled remote access, and logged out every single device. I leaned back in my chair, feeling the first real rush of satisfaction I'd had in weeks. If they wanted to treat me like an afterthought, I'd show them exactly what it felt like to be on the outside looking in. As I shut my laptop, my mind already spinning with ideas, I whispered to the empty room, "Let the games begin." It didn't take long for the chaos to start. The morning after I locked them out, I woke up to a string of missed calls and frantic texts. My phone buzzed on the nightstand like a desperate wasp, vibrating so hard it nearly toppled over. I reached for it, blinking against the harsh morning light, and scrolled through the notifications. Mom. Alex, please just reset the Wi-Fi. Dad, I can't access the rental page. What's going on, Mark? Dude, this isn't funny, just fix it. Mia. What is your problem? Just stop being childish and fix this. I tossed my phone back on the bed, letting the messages pile up. I made coffee, took a long shower, and scrolled through Netflix, trying to find something to drown out the echo of their demands. But even over the roar of the shower, I could hear my phone vibrating like a hive of angry bees. By lunchtime, the messages had evolved into outright panic. My mom, the woman who once said texting was for teenagers, had blown up my phone with desperate voicemails. The first one crackled through the speaker, her voice frantic and high-pitched. Alex, why are you doing this? The guests can't get into the rental and we can't access the account. They're threatening to leave bad reviews. Call me back, please. I smiled, a small, satisfied curl of my lips as I poured myself another cup of coffee. I could imagine them all pacing their sunny rental, sweating under the Spanish sun, phones overheating as they tried to reset passwords and call customer support in broken Spanish. An hour later, another voicemail, this one from Mark, his voice dripping with anger. Alex, stop screwing around. You think this is funny? You're ruining everything. Just fix it and stop being a brat. Brat. Right? I clenched my jaw, setting my cup down with a little more force than necessary. I could feel my pulse quicken, the old familiar heat rising in my chest. But I pushed it down, letting the bitterness fuel me instead. I opened my laptop, clicked into the rental account, and disabled all backup recovery options. Their frantic attempts to reset the password would now lead to a dead end. No recovery email, no backup phone number, no second chances. The next day, my phone buzzed with another round of desperate texts. My aunt, the one who had always taken my siblings sushi in every squabble, had finally joined the chorus. Aunt Lisa, Alex. I know you're upset, but this is getting out of hand. Your mom is in tears and your dad hasn't slept. Just be the bigger person and fix this. I closed the message without responding. The bigger person. That's what they always expected me to be. The quiet one, the fixer, the one who cleaned up everyone else's mess without so much as a thank you. That afternoon, my dad called. I let it ring out, then checked the voicemail. His voice was different. Not the calm, distant tone I was used to, but shaky, raw. Alex, this is enough. I don't know what's gotten into you, but we need you to fix this. We're losing money every day. Your mother's health is at risk. Please, just do the right thing. I felt a brief flicker of guilt, the kind that crept in uninvited like a cold draft through a cracked window. But then I remembered his silence every time Mark had cut me down or Mia had rolled her eyes at my accomplishments. The way he'd always turned a blind eye, choosing peace over fairness, comfort over confrontation. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and let the anger wash away the guilt. They had made their choice, and now they would live with the consequences. That night, I checked the rental account again. They'd tried resetting the password 3 times in the last hour. I smiled, leaned back in my chair, and whispered to the empty room, "Welcome to my world." The next morning, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was one of their guests stranded outside the rental, locked out and furious. Unknown number. "Hi, this is Greg. We're standing outside the house and can't get in. Your family isn't responding. Are you the property manager? Please help." I felt a small pang of sympathy for the guy, but I didn't respond. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Then a final text came through, this one from Mia. Short and sharp, the kind of message that would have stung a few weeks ago but now just rolled off me like water off a duck's back. "Mia, you're being selfish. Just fix it." I stared at her message for a long time, my thumb hovering over the reply button. But in the end, I just blocked her number. I leaned back, stretching my arms above my head, feeling the satisfying crack of my spine. For the first time in years, I felt a strange, unfamiliar sense of freedom. They had taken me for granted, pushed me aside, treated me like an afterthought. Now they would learn what it felt like to be truly, completely ignored. And I wasn't done yet. Not even close. It only took a few days for their panic to hit a fever pitch. The messages became a constant, vibrating pulse in my pocket, each one a fresh, desperate plea. I ignored them all, watching the chaos unfold from a safe distance. Then 3 days later, my doorbell rang. I paused mid-sip of my morning coffee, the sound startling in my quiet apartment. I set my cup down and checked the peephole. Mark, of course. He stood there, face-flushed, fists clenched at his sides, his jaw working like he was trying to chew through a mouthful of nails. I took a deep breath, rolled my shoulders, and pulled the door open just enough to meet his furious glare. "What do you want, Mark?" I said, my voice flat, unbothered. He pushed against the door, but I held it firm, not letting him barge in. His eyes flashed with irritation, his breath coming in short, angry huffs. "You think this is funny?" he snapped. "You're screwing with our lives, Alex. Just fix the damn Wi-Fi and unlock the rental." I let out a slow, deliberate sigh, leaning against the doorframe, my hand still holding the door steady. "Maybe you should call someone who cares," I said, the words dripping with cold indifference. He shoved the door harder, his face twisting with rage. "You're acting like a child," he spat, leaning in close, his voice low and dangerous. "Just because you got your feelings hurt doesn't mean you get to ruin everything for everyone else." I felt a spark of white-hot anger flare in my chest, but I forced myself to stay calm to keep my voice steady. "You made it clear where I stand, remember? So figure it out yourself." For a second, I thought he might actually take a swing at me. His hands flexed, his shoulders squared, but then he stepped back, throwing his hands up in disgust. "Fine," he growled, backing away down the hallway. "But don't come crying to us when you need something." I watched him go. His footsteps echoing off the walls as he stormed down the stairwell, the door slamming shut behind him. I took a deep breath, my heart racing, my palms still tingling with adrenaline. I closed the door slowly, leaning my forehead against the cool wood for a moment, letting the tension drain from my muscles. The next day, the real fallout began. My phone buzzed again, this time a call from my dad. I let it ring out, then checked the voicemail, his voice thick with a frustration I hadn't heard in years. "Alex, this is serious. We're losing bookings, and guests are threatening to leave bad reviews. You need to fix this, now." I leaned back on my couch, phone in hand, and scrolled to the rental dashboard. Sure enough, their listing had been flagged. Too many guest complaints, too many unresolved issues. The account was teetering on the edge of deactivation. I felt a slow, creeping satisfaction spread through me, a kind of cold, calculated triumph that I hadn't expected. This wasn't just petty revenge anymore. It was control. A few hours later, my mom finally cracked. Her voice message came through, the words frantic and uneven, like she was trying to keep herself from sobbing. "Alex, please, just call me. We can talk about this. We'll figure it out. You're my son. I don't know why you're doing this, but we can fix it. Just come home." Home. The word felt foreign, bitter on my tongue as I replayed the message. Home had always been a place where I felt like a stranger, the odd one out in a family that never quite knew what to do with me. I deleted the message. That night, I checked the rental account again. Their listing was officially suspended. Too many missed check-ins, too many complaints about locked doors and unanswered messages. Their summer income, The money they'd been counting on to cover debts and expenses was drying up fast. I poured myself a drink, the ice clinking softly against the glass, and took a slow, satisfying sip. I imagined them huddled together in their fancy rental, whispering furiously into their phones, trying to figure out how to salvage the mess they'd made. I leaned back, stretching my legs out on the couch, the cool leather creaking under my weight. For the first time in weeks, I felt a genuine, unrestrained smile spread across my face. Let them scramble. Let them panic. They had cast me out, turned me into a ghost in my own family, and now they were learning what it felt like to be truly, utterly alone. I tipped my glass toward the darkened window, the city lights blinking back at me like distant stars. "Here's to family," I whispered, taking another slow, deliberate sip. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a new kind of desperation. The messages had evolved from angry demands to outright pleas. My sister Mia had shifted tactics, switching from passive-aggressive texts to full-on guilt trips. "Mia, Alex, please just talk to Mom. She's a wreck. We're all trying to keep things together, but you're making this impossible." I ignored it, letting the message sit unread like a ticking time bomb. I'd muted their numbers, but a part of me still checked, still curious about how far they'd fall before they broke. Then my Aunt Lisa chimed in again, her message cutting through my morning like a cold wind. "Aunt Lisa. Alex, this isn't just about you anymore. Your parents are losing money, their health is suffering. You've made your point. Now let it go. Let it go." I set my coffee down, my fingers tightening around the edge of the kitchen counter. Let it go. Like I was the one clinging to a grudge, like they hadn't crossed a line when they cut me out. Then, for the first time in weeks, my father sent a message that wasn't a command or a guilt trip. It was a single line, blunt and to the point, but tinged with something that almost felt like regret. "Dad, you win." I stared at the message for a long time, the words glowing on the screen, each letter a small, sharp jab at the walls I'd built around myself. I felt a flicker of something, not quite satisfaction, but close, before I swiped the message away. A few hours later, my phone buzzed again, this time with an incoming call from my mom. I let it ring out, then checked the voicemail, her voice shaky and thick with barely contained panic. "Alex, I don't understand why you're doing this. We're your family. Whatever happened, we can fix it. Just come back. We need you." She let out a shaky breath, the sound cracking through the speaker like brittle glass. "Your father is stressed. He's not sleeping. I'm worried about his heart. Please just call me back." I closed my eyes, letting the phone drop onto the couch beside me. My jaw tightened, my teeth grinding against each other as her words replayed in my head. They hadn't worried about me, hadn't thought twice about leaving me behind, but now that their precious rental income was drying up, suddenly my absence mattered. I got up, pacing the small space between my couch and the window, my bare feet whispering against the cool hardwood. My mind raced, torn between the lingering guilt that clung to me like smoke and the deep, simmering anger that had been my constant companion for weeks. I glanced at my laptop, the screen still open to their rental account, the status flashing a bright, angry red. Suspended. I took a deep breath, the kind that burned my lungs and steadied my pulse. I wasn't ready to let go. Not yet. That evening, another message came through, this one from a number I didn't recognize. Unknown number. "Hey, this is Matt. I was supposed to stay at your parents' rental, but the lock code isn't working and they're not picking up. Can you help?" I closed the message, leaning back against the couch, the leather cool and unyielding against my back. I felt a pang of sympathy for the guy, but I couldn't bring myself to care. They had built this house of cards and now it was collapsing around them. Then, just as I was settling in for a quiet evening, my doorbell rang. I froze, the sound cutting through the quiet hum of my apartment like a gunshot. I stood slowly, my heart hammering against my ribs, the echo of the chime still reverberating in my ears. I crossed the room, each step deliberate, my breath coming in slow, controlled bursts. I checked the peephole, my pulse spiking as I recognized the face on the other side. Mark, again. I took a deep breath, steeling myself, then opened the door just enough to meet his eyes. He looked worse than the last time. His face drawn, his eyes red-rimmed and bloodshot, his jaw clenched so tight I could almost hear his teeth grinding. "Alex," he said, his voice rough, frayed at the edges. "Let me in." I hesitated, my hand still gripping the edge of the door, the cool metal pressing into my palm. "What do you want, Mark?" I said, my tone flat, devoid of the anger that had fueled me for weeks. He let out a harsh, shuddering breath, running a hand through his unkempt hair. "Look, I get it, okay? You're mad, but this is too far. You're screwing up our lives. Just stop, okay? Just stop." I felt a flicker of something close to pity, the kind you'd feel for a wounded animal, but I pushed it down, locking it away behind the wall I'd built around myself. "Not my problem," I said, meeting his eyes with a cold, unflinching stare. For a moment, I thought he might actually break his shoulders, sagging, his hands dropping to his sides. But then his jaw tightened again, his eyes hardening into a familiar, hateful glare. "Fine," he spat, stepping back, his voice low and venomous. "You want to burn this bridge? Go ahead, just don't come crawling back when you realize you've got no one left." He turned storming down the hallway, his footsteps echoing off the walls, each one a sharp, angry slap against the polished tile. I closed the door slowly, the latch clicking into place with a soft, final sound that seemed to echo through the quiet apartment. I leaned against the cool wood, my heart racing, my mind spinning with 1,000 half-formed thoughts, the taste of bitter satisfaction still sharp on my tongue. I had crossed a line, burned the bridge, cut the cord, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to look back. The next few days passed in a blur. The calls slowed, the texts trickled to a halt, and the frantic, desperate voicemails faded into a dull, echoing silence. I felt a strange, hollow relief, the kind that comes not from peace but from the absence of chaos. Then a message from Mia slipped through my blocked numbers, a last desperate plea. "Mia, Alex, please, just call Mom. She's a mess. Dad's talking about selling the rental and they're fighting every day. This isn't you. You're not a monster. Just talk to them." I closed the message without replying, my thumb hovering over the block button for a second before I let it be. I didn't need to hear their side anymore. I had already made my choice. But then 2 days later, my phone buzzed again, this time with a voicemail from my father. The man who had always been a quiet, distant shadow in my life, never one to intervene or take sides. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the play button. A small nagging part of me still clinging to the hope that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. His voice crackled through the speaker, rough and tired, like he'd aged a decade in the past few weeks. "Alex," he began, his tone flat, almost defeated. "I don't know what happened to you, but this isn't the son I raised. I'm disappointed. I expected better from you." A bitter laugh escaped my throat, the sound sharp and jagged in the quiet of my apartment. Disappointed. He was disappointed. I let the message play out, his voice droning on about family, about responsibility, about how I was letting everyone down. He never once mentioned my birthday, never once acknowledged their betrayal, their cold, calculated exclusion. I deleted the message, the action. A quick, satisfying swipe of my thumb, and leaned back on my couch, my head resting against the cool leather, my eyes closed. They had broken me, cut me out, left me to pick up the pieces of my shattered pride, and now they were trying to make me feel guilty for fighting back. A few days later, I got another message from Aunt Lisa, her tone shifting from concerned to outright accusatory. Aunt Lisa: "Alex, you're being cruel. This is your family. Blood is thicker than water. You're hurting people who have always loved you. Enough is enough." I closed the message, the words rolling off me like water off a duck's back. Blood is thicker than water. How many times had I heard that tired line, that guilt-drenched mantra of loyalty, of sacrifice, of family above all else? I took a deep breath, my fingers clenching around the edge of my phone. I had tried for years to live up to that expectation, to be the dutiful son, the reliable brother, the quiet, compliant fixture in their perfect little family. And where had it gotten me? Alone on my birthday, scrolling through their sun-soaked vacation photos, my heart aching with the bitter sting of betrayal. I stood slowly, crossing the room to my laptop, my mind already spinning with the final steps of my plan. I logged into their rental account, the one I had locked them out of weeks ago, the one that had become my silent digital battleground. Their account balance was a sea of red, the guest complaints piling up like unpaid bills, the reviews a litany of broken promises and ruined vacations. I clicked through the settings, my fingers moving with cold, calculated precision, and submitted the final account closure request. The message popped up on the screen, a bright, cheerful confirmation of their financial demise. "Your account has been permanently deactivated." I leaned back, my heart racing, my hands trembling, with a strange, heady mixture of fear and exhilaration. I had just burned the last bridge, cut the final cord, sealed my own fate. For a long moment, I just sat there, the quiet hum of my laptop the only sound in the room. My mind a chaotic swirl of regret and relief. Then slowly, I closed the laptop, the click of the lid echoing through my empty apartment, and stood, my legs shaky, my pulse still racing. I walked to the window, the city lights blinking back at me like 1,000 tiny watchful eyes, and took a deep, steadying breath. I had made my choice. I had drawn my line in the sand, cast my lot, chosen my path, and for the first time in my life I felt free. I reached for my phone, scrolling through my contacts, my thumb pausing over the group chat that had once been my lifeline. My connection to the people who had cut me out, cast me aside, forgotten me. I hovered there for a moment, my heart pounding in my chest, my breath coming in short, shallow gasps. Then, with a final decisive flick of my thumb, I hit the delete button, erasing them from my life with a single satisfying swipe. The message popped up, a simple, stark confirmation of my final, irreversible act of rebellion. Leave group. I tapped yes, the screen flickering for a second, the chat disappearing into the digital ether, the last fraying thread of my old life, finally blessedly severed. I took a deep breath, the air cool and sharp in my lungs, and turned away from the window, my mind already clearing, my heart lighter, my pulse steady. I had crossed the line, burned the bridge, cut the cord, and I felt no need to look back. Story 2. My brother was given a $10,000 check by my parents at Christmas dinner, then remarked, turning to face me, "There are no rewards for failures. You're not worthy of anything at all." My brother chuckled as they described me as a family shame. I got to my feet saying, "I get it," and left into the darkness. 4 years have passed since then. I tried to get in touch 3 weeks ago. For today, they were unprepared. They yelled, "Answer your phone," in hundreds of their messages. This incident occurred some time ago, but it hasn't really ceased playing in my mind, especially at this time of year. I'm not really sure how to begin without coming across as too dramatic, but the truth is that this was simply my family being themselves, and that's probably the true issue. Anyway, because I'm still upset about it, here's part 1. And I wonder if anyone else has ever experienced such a Christmas. My parents, therefore, are the kind that like things to appear flawless on the outside. As if they will quarrel about bills or something before guests arrive, then pretend everything is okay when the doorbell rings. My brother Grant always had all the attention while I was growing up, and I guess I was just there, but whatever. As we've gotten older, I thought maybe things would get better, but honestly, it's only become more apparent. Grant is younger by a few years. Been the favorite for all time. The family no longer even makes an effort to act otherwise. Marilyn. My mother used to say things like, "Grant is her heart, and I'm the practical one," which I later realized was a kind way of meaning that I'm uninteresting and unsocial. David, my father, is often quiet unless he has something to say about Grant, at which point he becomes rather opinionated. 4 years ago on Christmas, I was urged to arrive early. This group chat is available. Before supper, Mom says she wants everyone to be together for family time. When I arrive, things are already strange. Grant is using his phone while pacing. In the kitchen, my parents are whispering. While helping to prepare the table, Harper, Grant's fiancée at the time, is constantly looking at her nails as if she would rather be somewhere else. Rachel, my cousin, and my aunt are also present, primarily just browsing TikTok and avoiding conversation. Grant starts off by saying that he's going to make some significant moves and that some people must take the initiative if they want to succeed. I hear my mom chuckle softly and glance at my dad, but no one speaks. I'm sitting there avoiding eye contact while sipping whatever cheap soda was available. His parents always act like he's some sort of genius while he makes jokes. Dinner gets off to a good start. The food is good, really. I'll give that to my mother. However, there's this strange tension. I feel like I'm the only one who is unaware of what's about to happen while everyone else is aware of it. My aunt is discussing her dog. Harper is being shown some memes by Rachel. As if anticipating a drum roll, Grant continues tapping his fork on the plate. Mom detests my dad's habit of checking his phone beneath the table, but this time she doesn't confront him about it. Mom says she wants to celebrate some meaningful accomplishments when we finish our meal. Grant instantly sits up taller and gives me a sly smile. Mom talks endlessly about being a role model, working hard, and being dedicated. Then, as if at an award ceremony or something, he presents Grant this envelope with both hands. Grant pulls it open. Holding up a check, he laughs. He says it literally. Harper squeals and gives him a hug as he shows Harper the check, proving that it pays to be the family's successful member. My dad claps and says, "That's what being a guy looks like." I don't say anything, just gaze at my plate. Mom claims it's $10,000. Why? Because Grant makes us proud. He has always maintained the integrity of our name. To be honest, I assumed she was playing a joke for a check. Because who feeds their child $10,000? However, no. It's true. Then it becomes quite silent as my mother turns to face me, as if Rachel's phone were actually vibrating. "Well," Mom replies, "some members of this family don't receive rewards. There are no rewards for failures. You don't deserve anything at all," she says. My dad stares directly at me and nods, as if he's waiting for me to disagree. Grant chuckles, uttering the words, "Wow, rough," without even trying to disguise it. "However you pushed me beneath the table and injured her." I push his arm away. He pushes my shoulder back more forcefully than necessary. My mom flinches when I get up and my chair scratches. "What is this?" I ask. "You never did what we asked," my mother says. "Nothing was ever completed by you. You're a slacker. Your opportunities are wasted. You disgrace us," according to my dad. "Perhaps if you really tried for once," Grant adds. Harper just states, "Perhaps we should all just relax." However, my mother interrupts and says no. The truth must be told to people. "Okay," I say. "I get it. Perhaps you'll finally understand," my mother adds. All my dad does is cross his arms. With the check still in his hand, Grant smiles at me. Around it, I pick up my jacket and leave. My aunt reaches out to take my arm. I dismiss her and continue. "Don't let the door strike you," Grant yells, laughing once again. I shut the door firmly. I simply stroll down the driveway without turning around. Even though it's chilly outdoors, I don't care. Behind the door, I can hear them conversing. I heard my mother suggest that I should mature. Dad saying something about how I'll return with a vengeance. Grant joked that I may apply for a loan the next year. I simply continue to walk till I reach the end of the street. I simply wait for a ride after texting a friend to see if he's available. A few times my phone buzzes. I don't respond, but it's my aunt. I look over my feed, act as though it wasn't an accident. Grant's tail appears. He has already shared a picture of the check along with many fire emojis. That night I slept at my friend's house. Don't take my belongings. Avoid taking any calls. Neither of my parents' texts. Not even tomorrow. I know they meant it even if my aunt claims in her text that they didn't. This is how it has always been. Never be too loud to respond to the obvious. Yes, the favorite has always been Grant. According to my mother, he was her savior since she had a difficult time becoming pregnant. The first pancake that didn't quite turn out was me. Grant was the person my dad always wanted to go the right way. I suppose that's why I receive nothing while he receives all the perks. There is more than one thing. Every holiday is observed, each birthday. I would always be excluded from family group conversations or learn about things after the fact. Grant enjoys being in charge. I simply became accustomed to being the one that wasn't asked to the group trip or whatever, and my parents liked having a golden kid. That's how it occurred anyhow. I left without saying sorry and without turning around. I won't lie. That evening I made the decision that I would never overlook it again. I thought it was okay since they wanted to make it obvious that I meant nothing to them. When I'm not around to serve as their punching bag, we'll see how they handle it. If anyone is interested, I'll write the next section. However, this is where it all began. If this is being read by you. Yes, I did really leave. Indeed, I never returned there to experience what it's like to be excluded. One update. So after that Christmas, I didn't return to my parents' house. Not once. Nor on holidays, nor on birthdays. Not funerals or anything. People wonder whether it was difficult, but to be honest, acknowledging that it was always this way was the most difficult aspect. At last, I quit playing the part. I received around 3 texts in the first couple weeks following that. My Aunt Classic came first. It wasn't their intention. Your mother is like that, you know. Then, as if it were a joke, Grant tagged me in a meme he sent about sobbing at a club. I barred him from all chats but one and left him on red, in case receipts were needed. Mom never sent me a text. One communication from my dad read, "Grow up." That's the level then. I worked a number of side jobs, helped my friend move residences, paid my rent late some months, and lived on his sofa for a spell. It wasn't simple. However, my family's stillness was nearly serene. No one phoning to check on me, comparing me to Grant, or treating me like a visitor in my own life. It was a mutual friend, not relatives, who informed me of Grant's wedding. Well, whatever. That hurt. It wasn't until I saw the Instagram post that I realized he was engaged. I'm really appreciative of my ideal family and the customary flexing. I was coerced into attending by my aunt. I didn't respond, but I said my folks were really displeased. My mother only ever contacted me when she needed something. Months later, I received a text asking if I could lend him some cash since his honeymoon plans had fallen through. I choose to disregard it. She referred to me as self-centered. I got a meme about paying your dues from Grant. Blocked it as well. I won't lie. At times, I wondered whether I had overreacted. Every time I hear coworkers talk about family game night or whatever, or see families out together, I feel this aching that makes me wonder if I shattered it. I would then recall that meal. My mother's voice grants chuckle. That was the end result every time. This is when things start to get strange. People back home began to tell me that things weren't going well for my parents about 2 years after I left. It seems that the loans they had taken out to assist Grant with business-related matters never materialized. Rachel called the residence of my parents. They attempted to sell it, but to no avail. Grant's union was short-lived. After a year, Harper moved out, packed up most of her belongings, and shared all about her new life on social media. My father continued to act as though nothing was wrong, posting outdated pictures while seeming to be enjoying the life of their dreams. However, occasionally I would receive a call from an unknown number, and it would be my mother. She would ask me if I could spend a weekend at home, or if I could lend her a little amount of money till things improved. Each time I ended the call. The problem is that they did more than simply exclude me. They seemed to require my presence in order to feel justified in their decisions. My mom believed she couldn't have children, so they settled for me, and Grant was the blessing. I'm not even being theatrical there. When I was around 13, she really shouted that directly to my face. Image is everything to my dad. He would sooner lose everything than acknowledge Grant's lack of brilliance. I began setting aside all of my extra cash. I left my friend's house. I have a place of my own, not very fancy. I didn't make many posts on the web. I didn't want them to be aware of my activities. In my parents' posts about new phones and automobiles, I would see Grant. Then after several months, nothing happened. I noticed that their photos' backgrounds were getting thinner. The house has less items. Then all of a sudden they stopped posting from the previous location. This is where I began to consider retribution. I had no intention of doing trivial things like terminating subscriptions or anything. That is weak. I wanted them to experience the same sense of being excluded, abandoned, and disregarded as I did. I so began to monitor their home, examined Zillow each month, saw the decrease in pricing. I saw it posted as pre-foreclosure one day. My parents may not have even realized it was public. They may have assumed nobody would notice, but I did. I inquired what it would take to buy it outright when I contacted the number on the listing without providing my name. To ensure they wouldn't be able to identify me, I spent weeks reviewing every detail. I created an LLC, completed all the necessary paperwork, and avoided using my actual email address. In order to prevent my name from appearing, I spoke with the agency and made all the arrangements through a third party. Grant resumed messaging in the interim. He conveys a lengthy message on family unity, then adds, "It would be the right thing to help out as my parents are struggling." I questioned him about why he didn't spend his $10,000. "That's gone," he says, "invested with it." My mother begins to call, no longer even acting. Says in voicemails that you are the only one who can help with the family's disintegration. I don't respond. Be a man, my dad advises in a single SMS. Assist your family. I don't respond. I checked in and monitored the bids on the day the house was put up for auction. Grant attempted to outbid, but his bid was insufficient. My LLC prevailed. My mother called and begged me to assist them in repurchasing the house. I simply listened, gave her space, and hung up. The next step is when they discover the true identity of the customer. Indeed, I made sure they understood what it was like to be excluded. I honestly didn't believe I would follow through, but it felt much nicer to see them scurry than I had anticipated. This is when things start to get serious if you're still following along. The second update. Okay, so this is when things really start to go crazy. To be honest, I didn't anticipate reaching this point. However, here we are. My family essentially cut me off and I cut them back if you've read my previous postings. I didn't anticipate having the opportunity to completely change the course of events, but that's just the way life works, I suppose. When I saw that my parents' property appeared on Zillow as pre-foreclosure, everything became more serious. I'm not joking. I discovered that I had been viewing it for months in this way, just sometimes checking in. Not for anything other than, I don't know, curiosity, habit, perhaps, spite. I never imagined that they would truly lose it. Grant's investments and their desire to maintain appearances may have finally caught up with my dad, who always pretended that money was not a concern. I saw that the pictures were becoming antiquated. It was evident that things were no longer being mended. It appeared to be a tough yard. Even though some of the family's furniture was no longer visible in the background, they continued to share old photos on Facebook as if nothing had changed. Traditional. The strange thing was that I received a call from an unidentified number as soon as the listing was updated. I thought it would be a spammer, but it was Grant. He went straight to the point that family must be together because circumstances are tight right now without even trying to strike up a conversation. He asked if I could lend him $10,000 or whatever. He just stated that things were a bit more complex than normal without mentioning the house. I hung up after telling him I had nothing to offer. Then my mother called, sent a lengthy statement about how families must support one another during difficult times. Nothing about the house, continuing to act as if nothing was amiss. Just in case I formed the LLC months ago. I had enough money to make an offer since I had been saving, working hard, and living simply. I got a local man to take care of everything. I made sure my name was never mentioned in public. I wanted it finished before they realized it was me. I didn't want to give them the opportunity to talk their way out of it or wiggle out. The auction then begins. I'm sitting in my small apartment eating cereal right out of the box while watching it on my phone. Grant attempts to place a bid. The name is his former gamer tag with some digits at the end, so I know it's him. LOL. When I saw it, I really started laughing. In a matter of minutes, he was outbid. My LLC had the money, but I barely had enough to play a few other bids. That's exactly how I want it. My mom calls me the next week. She's not even trying to act composed. She mentioned that the residence was being purchased by an outsider. How? After all these years, it's a betrayal and true family would be helpful. All I do is listen. After letting her vent, I hung up. One word was all my dad texted me. Coward, nothing more. A knock on my door occurs a few days later. I scan the populace. Grant is here. It appears that he is already lost. I open the door. He never even says hello, enters my kitchen and simply pushes by me. I should have warned him, he says, flinging his fists in the air. Furthermore, why didn't I mention that I was heading for the house? I assure him that no one needed to be warned. Now it's business. In fact, he pushes me. Enough to convey his point, but not too difficult. I give him a sharp shove in return and order him to go out if he touches me once more. I'll regret it, he growls, slamming his hand into my table. Maybe you'll finally know what it's like to lose what you believe to be yours, I remarked. He slams the door so forcefully that it rattles the frame as he storms out. I simply remained there hoping he would return, but he never did. My mother made another attempt to contact and left a frantic message about how I was damaging the family's legacy and causing us to drift apart. I didn't respond. One night, my dad literally knocked on my apartment door and yelled that I was a disgrace and that I would never be one of them. Not even the door was opened by me. Finally, he walked out, grumbling to himself all the way down the corridor. The next thing I know, my cousin Rachel texts me to inform me that she heard from my aunt that my parents are accusing me of being a snake and telling everyone that I cheated them out of the house. It's business, not personal, I informed her. You know, they'll never forgive you, she added. I don't care if they do. I responded. The problem is that they consistently treated me as though I were expendable. For example, there would always be someone else to take my place if I departed. The favorite was Grant, the one incapable of wrongdoing. Even when all they had left were bills after he squandered their money. A golden kid was what my mother needed. To carry the name, my dad wanted someone. All I did was remind them of all the things that didn't go as planned. So good. I tasted that emotion for them. Everything they believed to be secure, I took. A week later, the formal notice arrived in the mail. To ensure they couldn't ignore it, I made sure a courier delivered it. My mother repeatedly tried to contact before just texting us to say, "You're dead to us." My father remained silent. Even he must have realized there was nothing else to say. To attempt to play, my aunt called. I should give them another chance, the peacekeeper advised. Despite their arguments that family always comes together. Not this time, I reassured her. Although Rachel said she didn't hold me responsible, she also didn't want to become involved. I understand. The home was mine. Didn't even try to find a tenant. Simply leave it unoccupied. I occasionally drive past to check whether any of them return. Nothing as of yet. Grant moved in with some buddies, I've heard. My folks live across town in a rental. I get no conversation. Sincerely, I prefer it that way. Many individuals on this site may complain that it's harsh, but if you knew my family, you would understand. Forgiveness and a large reunion are not things that attract me. They made up their minds. They now have to cope with it. When the calls begin is the next step, such as an absurd volume of voicemails, messages, and calls, day and night. At last they understand that there is no way out of this. And to be honest, it's the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. Just wait for the next update to find out what that's like. The last update. You are aware of the setup if you have read this far. I didn't care about being tactful or about family anymore, so I purchased the home out from under them. Wanted them to experience what it's like to feel excluded and helpless. I suppose I anticipated some drama and shouting, but what transpired after the papers were delivered was extraordinary. The first thing that happened to them was that the calls began. Usually, I get a text from Grant with a wall of furious emojis and 1 or 2 missed calls from my mom. My dad is simply writing to me right now. I didn't respond. I thought they would get the hint, but they didn't. It quickly picked up speed. When I checked my phone after setting it to Do Not Disturb, I saw that I had hundreds of missed calls, all capitals, messages, and voicemails from my mom, who was sobbing and shouting alternately. Grant made 2 attempts to FaceTime me. Be a man and respond to your father, my dad said in his constant texts. Even though they never used WhatsApp, they sent me a message there. Rachel sent a text. They're going crazy, for your information. I eventually listened to a message in which my mother was furious about how I had wrecked all we had worked so hard to build and how I had ruined my brother's life. How true men never desert their families. She added that well-known quote, "When you become older, you'll regret this," which after all these years simply sounded pitiful. Grant essentially shouted into the microphone in his voicemail, "I'll pay for this, and I'll never forget what I did." To be honest, I chuckled. My dad's was simply quiet. Then, as if he were keeping everything together with both hands, he called me back slowly. This is where the actual fallout began. The actual move-out date was given to my parents. It wasn't unexpected. They had been evading payments for some time, but it must have struck a new chord when they saw the notice with my LLC's name on it, not me, but near enough for anybody to Google. My mother contacted me once again, accusing me of deceiving them, being nasty, and claiming that no decent son would act in this way. Dad tried threatening to go to court. I just saved the texts. Grant made an effort to act as though he would somehow regain the house. Then I turned around and accused everyone on the internet of being mentally ill and harboring an unjustified animosity. I didn't even think to answer. Just observed as others of their social circle began to take sides. Rachel told me that every week during family get-togethers, the tale was different. I was first influenced by others. I was then bought off. Then it was simply. He was constantly envious of Grace. They made it obvious that I mattered nothing to them, but they never once mentioned the real reason. And at last I demonstrated that I didn't require them. 2 weeks ago, they left. I received a picture of the empty living room from Rachel. Just the old drapes and no furnishings. Even though Grant's engagement had already ended, it seems that his ex blocked him everywhere after sending him a screenshot of the eviction notice. Despite what I told her, my aunt is contacting me to suggest that I should feel humiliated because my parents live in a rental that is much smaller than the house. No more. My mother called me one final time. In fact, she knocked on my flat door. I didn't respond. She began shouting outside the door that I would never be forgiven for this. She was ordered to leave by my neighbor, who came out. She stormed off after slapping my door. I just opened the door and got the mail after waiting until everything was quiet. My dad attempted to arrive as well, but when I answered the door, he simply gave me a look, remained silent, and left, slamming the building's door behind him. I believe he considered hitting me, but changed his mind. Most likely intelligent. There is now only stillness. Their phone numbers are prohibited. I removed the voicemails and made all of my social media accounts private. The only individuals who truly know what happened are either unconcerned or subtly encouraging. According to Rachel, Grant is telling anybody who will listen that he's going to return stronger than before, while my parents are telling people that I destroyed their life. I don't think so. As of the last time I saw, he was couch surfing and sharing inspirational sayings on his story. As well as myself, I still occasionally drive past the house. To be honest, I don't even want it. I just enjoy that people are aware that it is my. I didn't do this for a lesson or some fairy tale conclusion. I did it because I had had enough of being their scapegoat, their fallback option, and their nothing. They always made me feel like they didn't matter, but now they do, and I wanted them to feel the same way. That's the end of it then. I'm not listening so they can yell all they want. Never, ever. I received my retribution. And if someone is still reading, I have no idea who they are. I appreciate your perseverance. There are times when you simply must go on and not look back. There's no reason to stop here. However, I don't require one. It was my turn to go away at last. Story 3. I requested a 1-month stay with my parents when I was laid off. "You're 33, unemployed, and still pathetic," my dad replied, laughing in my face. "This isn't a refuge for the homeless. We raised you, not your problems," my mother remarked. They give my younger brother and his fiancée free use of my former room a week later. I simply nodded and thanked you for the clarification. After 6 months, I made a choice they didn't anticipate. They're pleading now. "Don't interrupt us, please. I'm not even sure where to begin. I've always lurked here. I never imagined that I would publish, but my family's situation today was completely out of control. So let's get started. I'm Finley, 30 at 3 a.m. for background, and to be honest, I've always been the family's responsible member. That one child who does everything perfectly but yet receives less attention. You know I am that. I don't claim to be flawless, but I've been the one that never needed money, kept my composure, and didn't phone home in tears about drama auto repairs or anything else. Josie, my younger brother, is quite different. He is younger by 2 years. Been the golden child all along. My parents would comment, "At least he's creative, even if he lit the backyard on fire." To be honest, it's been a joke since high school, but I simply put up with it. I was laid off last month. I won't get into specifics since I'm not here to discuss that, but it was awful. After around 8 years of living on my own, I suddenly had no backup plan. I lost my job all of a sudden. I have some money saved up, not enough for a long-term rent float. I thus did what everyone says an adult should never do. In order to get back on my feet, I asked my parents if I might stay with them for a few weeks. I had assumed that they would at least act as though they were considering it. My dad was using his phone to browse while seated at the kitchen table. Didn't even raise their eyes after I was done speaking. He simply burst out laughing as if I had told him the silliest joke. "You're 33, he says. "You're still this pitiful despite having no employment. This isn't a refuge for the homeless." I stood there attempting to figure out whether he was playing tricks on me. I thought my mother may intervene and say something typical, but she simply shrugged and left. "We didn't raise your issues, we raised you." I attempted to explain that it would just be for a month. "I will cover the cost of the food. In any case." My dad rolled his eyes and began to talk about how Jose usually worked things out and was never this weak. "I said that you people paid for his automobile and that Josie lived at home till he was 28. My father struck the table with his cup. "Get out," he said. "It wasn't their fault," I argued, "if I couldn't handle being an adult." My mother had just begun to empty the dishes. Didn't give me a glance. I made one final attempt. Claimed that I would hunt for work every day. Stay out of their path. "You need to have done more planning," she replied. "You're not a child." On my way out, I shut the front door and picked up my backpack. The problem is that I probably would have left it there. I put it down to the fact that my parents are just my parents. However, I returned a week later to get some of my old belongings from the garage. I heard noises upstairs as soon as I entered. In my former room, Jose and Monica, his fiancée, were arranging her bed and beauty table. Made fresh curtains. In the closet is his baggage. I'm wondering whether this is a prank as I stand in the hallway. Jose smiles broadly as he sticks his head out. "Hey dude, a long time, huh?" When she asks whether I want to see the new paint color, Monica waves. As he passes by, my father remarks that Jose and Monica needed a place to stay while their flat was being fumigated. I understand that it's not a shelter for the homeless, but it works for them. He simply shrugs, claims that Jose will soon tie the knot. Now he needs assistance. My mother claims we're helping them get started as she approaches with a stack of towels. It's not the same. "If they're paying rent," I inquired. "Don't be resentful, Finley," she says. I laughed, but it was that type of exhausted, angry chuckle. "Thanks for the clarity," I remarked. Something about not creating a scene was whispered by my dad. To be honest, I was about to lose it, so I just went outside. Jose came after me, said that he didn't come up with it. He explained they only needed a place to stay for a few weeks. "Man, you know how they are." I said to him, "Yes, I do." I left it there as well. The space, the rent, and the fact that they would rather assist Jose again than me, however, weren't the things that truly remained with me. That was the casualness of it for them, as if there was no issue. I don't count, they decided just now. And that was all. My mother emailed me a photo of Monica and Jose at the kitchen table the next day, along with a smiling face. Family helps family, but only when individuals deserve it, according to a letter my dad sent me. I didn't respond. I began sleeping on my buddy Norman's sofa in an attempt to get a job, but I was mainly simply mentally reliving that day. I kept thinking that I may just label it bad luck if it had been any other family. However, things have always been like way with my folks. Jose makes a mistake. They assist him. I request assistance. I should be stronger, they say. I've had enough of acting like it doesn't affect me. I'm not sure what I'll do, but I won't just accept it. I have some concepts. I'll provide an update if anything occurs. I just wanted to let something out for the time being. Regards. If you've read this far, I wonder what people would do if I were them. To be honest. One update. Yes, I did not anticipate that so many of you would read my previous post. The fact that so many people seem to understand it is even more bizarre. At least I don't feel crazy for being angry, though. I'm not sure if that made it better or worse. Anyway, a lot has happened since I posted. I said I had ideas, and to be honest, I now have more than just ideas. First of all, I kind of shut down for a while after the whole scene at the house where Jose and Monica moved into my old room. Half job hunting, half doom scrolling, and contemplating how messed up it was, I was sitting on Norman's couch. Norman just did his own thing and was cool with it. Allow me to be angry. He's not the kind to confront you about your emotions. To be honest, I was grateful for that, but it was strange. Have you ever observed anything strange about the way others are behaved yet been unable to pinpoint the cause? Similar to the days after my mother's SMS message. Not even about myself. Just a weird query about how her TV remote worked. I didn't respond. Then another asking if I could help her set up something on her laptop. Like a week after, I'd evidently been too pitiful to be under their roof. Suddenly, I'm tech support again, ha ha ha. I disregarded both. A day later, she texted a thumbs up emoji and nothing else. IDK whether that was trying to make me feel bad or what. Meanwhile, Josie started popping up in my DMs more than he has in years. He acted all casual, like, hello dude. Hope you're good. Are you still in possession of the house Wi-Fi login? I removed the message. He then asked me whether I knew the location of the previous router password. I responded to the SMS. Ask your mother. They are still berating me for the same things 2 weeks after they ejected me. What's humorous, do you? Woo! They never even considered it to be work because I constantly take care of their payments, passwords, and other issues. I suppose I just did it since it was simpler than debating. Or perhaps they never found anything else sufficient about me, so I just wanted to feel productive. In any case, Norman replied to me, you realize they're only nice when they need something. He's direct to be sure, but he's not incorrect. My parents have always been the kind to take care of you just enough, unless you're with him and Josie. It's like, oh, your car crashed. For a new one, here's some cash. Are you in need of lodging? This is the newly painted version of Finley's former room. Until I spoke with Norman, I always assumed it was just a family dynamic issue. They act as though I'm only an extension of their desires, no human. I then began to consider my options. Something that would truly make them feel it rather than a silly practical joke. I wanted them to understand what it's like when someone you rely on is simply absent. Every time my mom texted me for tech support, I began small. I simply let her read. To assist him move some data from his old laptop to Monica's, Josie requested me. I apologized, saying I was busy. About the printer setup, Dad sent me an email. I didn't respond at all. The group conversation followed. My dad shares those boomer memes, and my mom writes chain messages on our family's group chat. Most of the conversation is between her and Josie. I turned it down. Dad tagged me in a message a few days later, asking if I could stop over and assist them with the new thermostat as it wasn't functioning properly. I'm not available, I said. Ask Jose, perhaps. I then departed from the gathering. When I told Norman that, he burst out laughing. The problem is that I was well aware of what had transpired. With this thing, my brother is worthless. Monica even less. Years ago, I had installed their smart home equipment. They began texting more and eventually phoning since they never bothered to learn how things worked. I disregarded each and every one. It felt fantastic, but I suppose you're thinking, well, that's just being petty, like very nice. They wanted something, and for once I didn't just fold and run, Norman remarked. They must be allowed to sit in it. Suddenly, I began receiving texts from my extended family. My parents informed my Aunt Kendra over the phone that I was not helping them when they needed it. "You know family is meant to stay together," she remarked. Finley. I explained what had transpired to her, about being evicted and Josie obtaining my former room at no cost. She fell silent. "Well, your parents are under a lot of stress," she remarked. I hung up after saying, "So was I." I sent out resumes, went to a few interviews, and was still hunting for work. Nothing landed immediately. I got by for a while. I was okay even though I ate a lot of cheap noodles. Being broke is preferable to being humiliated once more. Josie and Monica began sharing stories from my former room in the interim. The draperies and the foolish light I had forgotten were familiar. In a post about at last having a place to call home even if only temporarily, Monica mentioned her mother. "My mother said she was delighted to assist you in beginning your life together." I forwarded it to her without a caption after taking a screenshot. She abandoned me to read the classic. I began blocking phone numbers. Jose came after my parents. "This is family." He became more aggressive like a male. "Why are you acting this way?" I answered. "Do you know why?" And also obstructed him. "Norman's washing machine broke after a month or so." "Hey, do you know a repair guy?" I texted my dad. "Perhaps you should learn to be more responsible," he said. That was left on read. The problem is that my folks are not stupid. They simply have this tendency to believe they are correct all the time. Like you're incorrect if you don't follow their guidelines. "You have to earn respect," my dad used to say. He never told Jose that. Years ago, I questioned him about it, and he said that Jose is unique. He requires further assistance. About 2 months after all of this began, I finally learned to quit asking questions. Jasmine, my cousin, contacted me. She said that people were talking and that my mother was informing everyone that I had left the family. "What would you do, Jasmine, if your mother expelled you but allowed your brother to move in?" "I'd lose it," she replied. Therefore, I was not alone in thinking it was messed up. The engagement celebration followed. Monica and Jose were fighting at my parents' place. My mother texted me, of course. "We would be delighted if you could assist with setup. Regarding the sound system, Monica requires assistance." "Can't be busy," I said. "Your family comes before your pride," she remarked. She was blocked by me. A buddy told me that the lights were flickering and the sound was terrible. I won't lie, I laughed. Here's the deal then. I became aware of how much of their lives I had been sustaining simply by being present after months of this. Not only technology. I used to remind my dad of things he would forget, assist with their taxes, and pay some of the payments online. And now they were alone. I'm not claiming to be a genius. I'm simply stating that I recognized when to back off. I retaliated every time they attempted to place the blame on me. Norman eventually responded, "I'm done being the fallback," when I informed him. "I'm waiting now. I'm aware that they're having more difficulties than they admit." Jose is already complaining to family members. Nothing works and Monica is furious. In addition, my folks are behaving as though I'm the bad guy. I don't really care. I'm the one in charge for once. The next steps have already begun. I'll let them experience what it feels like to be disposable if that's how they choose to behave. When things become intriguing, we'll provide an update. Believe me, I've only just begun. The second update, I'm back now. Additionally, NGL things have become far messier than I anticipated. I suppose I always thought my parents would just carry on with their routine, behaving as though nothing was wrong and that I was the one with the issue because, well, that's just the way things have always been. Josie always seems to require more comprehension. Let him rest. He is sensitive. But me, I guess I should simply say thank you and eat garbage. That may sound dramatic, but that's the general feeling. To set the tone, I'll begin with something little. Perhaps a month or so after the disastrous engagement party, which I thankfully did not attend, and where the music system reportedly malfunctioned the entire time, Monica began sending me sporadic texts without even feigning friendliness or asking how I was doing. For example, "Hey, what's the smart thermostat password?" Or "Is the door lock jammed once more? Would you be able to visit?" She just texted this one time. "This place is frigid. What's causing the heat to fail?" Every time I just left her on red. To be honest, I initially assumed they would just find someone else to make the necessary repairs. However, it turns out that none of the things I put up for have ever been truly taught by anyone in my family. I can't even begin to count the number of times I've attempted to educate my dad how to change the furnace filter or reset the router. He would constantly wave me away and say things like, "Finley, that's your thing. I'm beneath it." Jose would simply respond, "I don't know, ask Finley," and return to his work, so I suppose it was beneath him as well. Got away with everything every time. Mom, she just pretends that she is unable to hear you. If you ask her to perform an action that isn't exactly in line with her plan. Now that I'm gone, things are truly coming apart and it's amusing. To be honest, I used to be able to manage the queries in the family group chat in 2 seconds, but now they are just debating if the oven broke or whether they simply tripped the breaker. It brightened my entire week. Using a guilt trip, Josie attempted to entice me back in by asking, "Are you really going to leave us hanging?" Champ blocked him when I told him, "You got this." The speed at which things became genuine for them caught me off guard. The front door no longer even closes after they attempted to fix the smart lock by hiring a guy from Facebook Marketplace, correct. Monica didn't even bother to say hello when she phoned. Simply snapping. Due to the Wi-Fi outage, I am unable to place my meal order. What did you do? I ended the call. There was Norman, who simply burst out laughing. They're finally receiving what they're due, they said. Then my mother began to take action. In fact, one day she appeared at Norman's house. She entered the room as I was browsing the job boards at the kitchen table. Didn't even ring. "I just want to talk," she says. "You never wanted to chat when I needed aid," I told her. I just got up and left for my room as she began to weep. Shut the door. When Norman walked out and spotted her standing there, he simply told her to go. When she walked out, she slammed the door. My Aunt Kendra then gave me a call, all fired up, claiming that I was ruining my parents' lives and that the family was conversing. "You don't know half of it," I told her. "Well, it's gone too far," she remarked. "This has to be fixed." "Perhaps they ought to have considered that before expelling me," I remarked. She ended the call. What's crazy is that my dad continues to act as like nothing is wrong despite everything. He wrote me a lengthy email explaining that family must remain united, that he had taught me to be tough, and that I need to be a better role model for Josie. I didn't respond at all. I wrote "your turn" and emailed the email to Josie. Sincerely, I'm not losing sleep over it, even though I know some readers will think I'm being petty. For what use did I spend years trying to prove myself, doing everything for them? I left as soon as I needed something. For once, they can finally handle their own problem. And there's the financial aspect. My dad would frequently misplace the paper bills or forget the passwords, so I used to take care of a lot of the internet bill things for them. I paused. Did not speak up. Allow the late notices to arrive. My mother called me in a frenzy, threatening to turn off the water. "Perhaps you ought to give the business a call," I said. I ended the call when she began to rant. Jose began to understand it as well. I got a text from him. "Monica is furious. The house is in disarray. I can't get Dad to listen." I blocked him once again after telling him he was on his own. It was one night when he really knocked on Norman's door. Said he only wished to speak. Norman replied. Told him to go. Norman pushed Jose back outside and shut the door as he attempted to push past him. To be honest, I didn't even get out of bed. Simply continued to watch TV. The finest aspect, I've finally found a new home. Just a little flat, nothing special. However, it belongs to me. I kept my family in the dark. Relocated just now, blocked their phone numbers. Stop looking at the group conversation. We just sat on the floor and ate pizza as Norman helped me carry my belongings. I have not even mentioned my folks. It was the best feeling I've had in months. Jasmine has now informed me that my parents are panicking since tax season has arrived and they are unsure of what to do. They owe additional money because apparently they tried to enlist the aid of a man in a strip mall, but he ruined everything. In order to stop living this way, Monica is threatening to move out. Josie is also pleading with my parents for assistance. My mom keeps phoning everyone she knows and accusing me of being unkind, but my dad won't acknowledge that he's in over his head. My mom is losing it, so I should just be the stronger one, Kendra texted. No, no more. They made it obvious who is important. All I'm doing is returning clarity to them. Now there's a strange vibe. For example, I don't listen to voicemails and receive messages from banned numbers. Josie tried to look casual when I bumped into him at the grocery store, but he later asked if I could help him repair the house Wi-Fi so Monica wouldn't shout. I went away after telling him it wasn't my problem. I simply brushed him off as he followed me and grabbed my arm. I'm not feeling it. When you quit playing the game, it looks like this, I suppose. I won't claim it's simple since there are moments when it may get unpleasant, particularly when a family member attempts to guilt trip me or approaches me in public. However they made their decision. They're sensing it now. So no, it's not a scene from a movie. No major speech is being made. I don't care that no one learned anything. They're having trouble and I won't help them. I can see they're growing desperate as the next step is going to happen. Wait for the last update if you're still reading. Believe me, they're going to understand what it's really like to be disconnected. The last update. I thus didn't believe I would follow through on all of this. Like, not completely. I reasoned that I may just ignore them and give them a little time to perspire. However, given how events transpired, it was actually nearly too simple. Since this is real life, it's messy, and to be honest, I'm still digesting half of it. I know some of you were hoping for a tidy finish or something. My mom sent me an odd text message which was the first strange indication. She just said, "Do you want this or should I toss it?" It was a picture of an antique lamp that I had left behind. No. Hello. Nothing except the bulb, no background. I didn't respond. My dad writes a meandering message a few days later saying that sometimes people just need to grow up and go on. I simply kept it on. I didn't answer even though I hadn't planned to. The call then began. Jose was first attempting to appear informal, but each call I ignored just served to highlight his presence. His voicemail said, "Hey bro, give me a call back too." Really, Monica has had enough. She's going out. I'm meant to care if we can't get the heat to work. I never phoned back after all of that, but I would see the missed calls, sometimes 7 or 8 consecutive ones. No, I'm simply going about my life then. A new flat. Not great, but whatever. It's quiet at least. At night, I go grocery shopping, do my own washing, and go through my phone. Not a bit of this strange drama. Norman occasionally stops by. We speak trash and watch YouTube. Typical thing. Then my cousin Jasmine appears in my direct messages. "Not even," she adds. "Hello, what exactly did you do? What are you talking about?" I ask, "Your parents are losing it." She adds, "The house bills are beyond their means. Jose and your dad are fighting. Your mother is accusing you of cruelty." "They did this on themselves," I replied. Jasmine claims that you are aware that you will always be held responsible for everything. "It doesn't matter," I said. "I'm leaving." Things start to go wrong the next week. Thinking it's someone else, I respond when Jose calls from a different number. "The bank is threatening to freeze the account," he says abruptly. "They didn't pay the water bill. Since no one knows the passwords and his father has lost his mind, he is unable to access any of the internet content. He warns that if you don't help, Mom will have a breakdown." "Look, I'm not going to jump in," I tell him. "Work things out." I end the call as he begins to shout. He returns the call. The number is blocked by me. Monica now becomes involved. She arrives to my house. I'm not kidding at all. She is pounding on the door while standing in the corridor. "I'm not opening," she texts. "You're wrecking your brother's life if you believe you're punishing your parents." I don't respond. As she leaves, she slams the door. My dad then makes another attempt. He says, "You're being selfish," and leaves a message. "You're leaving your family behind. You must mature." "This is your fault," he says. I remove the message. The group conversation follows. I get added back by my mom. "Send out spam. Please assist us. The policy expired. The utilities are beyond our means. The house is collapsing." I turn off the conversation. Looking at me, Norman asks, "Is this what you wanted?" I explain that I simply wanted them to experience it. The finest aspect. In fact, my parents approached my Aunt Kendra and informed her that I would not grant them access to the household accounts. And Kendra yells at me, claims that I'm being vindictive. I told her that since no one spoke out when I needed assistance, I shouldn't be concerned now. She talks endlessly about her relatives. I end the call. My mother makes one final attempt. She knocks when she arrives at my apartment. I crack open the door. "I know you're angry, but where?" she asks. "Your parents. You can't simply stop talking to us. You made your decision in my opinion. Live with it now." She makes an attempt to open the door. I put my foot in front of her. She gives up and turns to go slapping the wall. I check my phone later in the evening. Like 30 missed calls, I promise. Messages left by each of them. Mom, Dad, Monica, and Jose. In essence, they are all yelling into the phone. Respond, respond. Pick up the phone. This is not possible. Don't interrupt us, please. You are our son. You are necessary to us. I read them while I sit there.